Hey guys, this is your tutorial for Monday, September 21st. If you missed the live session, make sure that you stay for the duration of this tutorial and you do the attendance link so that we can give you credit for attending the tutorial. Today was the day that we took the atmosphere quiz. Now, before we took the quiz, we did a little bit of review, so that's what I want to take the time to do during this tutorial is review this information with you guys. And then after the tutorial, you can take your quiz. So this first part is a review on layers. It says match the layers with the correct description. It gives you your 5 layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere. You have to match it with the correct description. So, answer choice A, the hottest layer. We know that the prefix therm or thermo means heat, just like a thermometer. So the thermosphere pairs up with A, the hottest layer. B says protects us from meteors. I always tell my kids that ME in meteors, remember it because of the ME in mesosphere. So the mesosphere is the layer that protects us from meteors. Answer to choice C, where we live and weather happens here. So this is your lowest layer of the atmosphere. This is where we are living. This is where everything in our world takes place. And that is going to be the troposphere. So 1 troposphere is C. The next answer choice is D. This is the layer that leads off into space. This is going to be your outermost layer. Remember the prefix exo means outer, like an exoskeleton of a bug. It's the outer barrier of the bug. So the exosphere is the outermost layer that goes off into space. So number 5 is D. And the last option, E, has the ozone layer in it. That is your stratosphere. The second layer of the atmosphere is the layer that houses the ozone layer. Here's a couple of review questions, and so we're going to go over each one, and I will tell you the correct answers. Number 1, how do we know when one layer of the atmosphere changes to another layer? So essentially, how are we classifying the layers of the atmosphere? When it goes from the troposphere to the stratosphere to the mesosphere, what is it that's changing that causes it to become a new layer? And the correct answer is temperature changes. So when the temperature changes in a layer, if the layer was getting hot, the moment it starts getting cold, it turns into a different layer. So for example, in the troposphere where we live, on the surface it's warm, but as you go up into the troposphere where we live, it gets cooler. So that temperature is getting colder, 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 colder. The moment it starts getting warmer, it turns into the stratosphere. The stratosphere gets warmer the higher up you go. The moment it starts getting colder is when it turns into the mesosphere. So what happens to classify the layers is that big temperature change. So from each layer, starting at the troposphere, it gets cooler, stratosphere gets warmer, mesosphere gets cooler, thermosphere gets warmer. Okay? Number 2, which gas is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere? So that is going to be nitrogen. Nitrogen comes in at 78%. Do not tell me oxygen. I know oxygen is a very important gas that we know we need to survive, but oxygen is only 21% of the atmosphere. Okay, the most abundant or most plentiful gas is nitrogen. Number 3, what are some of the trace gases? So these are those other gases, those gases that make up the last 1%. Some of those gases can be carbon dioxide, water vapor, argon, methane. Any of those would be considered trace gases. Number 4, what percentage of the air is oxygen? That's that 21% that I just mentioned above. So this is the second most abundant gas in the atmosphere. Number 5, what is in the stratosphere that makes the temperature increase? Well, think about the stratosphere. Think about what you know is in the stratosphere. You should know that the ozone layer is in the stratosphere. And essentially the ozone layer absorbs those ultraviolet rays so that not so many of them come down through the atmosphere and reach us in the troposphere. So the whole reason that the stratosphere has temperatures that warm it up is because the ozone layer is there absorbing those warm ultraviolet rays. Number 6, what is the atmosphere? The atmosphere is an envelope of gases that surround the Earth. It has solid particles. It has liquid particles because remember, the air is never just pure, clear, clean air. There are always particles in the air. So the atmosphere is the mixture of gases and the liquid and solid particles that are in the air. Number 7, which layer has the most pressure and water vapor? So think about water vapor. That's when water turns into a gas. You know, when gases turn back into a liquid or they condensate, they form clouds. Clouds are part of weather. Weather happens in the troposphere. Okay, so it's the troposphere that has the most pressure and the most water vapor. You have the whole weight of the atmosphere pushing down on you at the troposphere because the troposphere is the lowest layer, the one that's closest to Earth. So you have essentially the whole rest of the atmosphere pushing down on you when you're in the troposphere. So number 7 is troposphere. Number 8, which boundary separates the troposphere and stratosphere? Well, remember that those boundaries are called pauses. So a pause is that boundary that separates one layer from another one. So every single boundary is going to have the word pause in it. In order to figure out what comes before pause, just look at the layer below it. So if you're looking at the boundary between the troposphere and the stratosphere, you use the prefix of the layer below the boundary. So troposphere would be on the bottom between troposphere and stratosphere. So it would be the tropopause that separates the troposphere from the stratosphere. If you're looking at what separates the stratosphere from the mesosphere, it would be the stratopause. Okay. Next, we talk about temperature. The slide says what happens to the temperatures in each of your 4 main layers as you go up in the atmosphere. So you're essentially telling me, is the temperature increasing or is the temperature decreasing? So where we live, the troposphere, think about how warm it is when you're at sea level at the beach versus how warm it is when you're climbing up a mountain at the very top. You should know that in the layer we live in, the troposphere, as you go up in the atmosphere, it gets colder. So for the troposphere, temperature decreases. Well, the next layer has to do the opposite because we know the layers are classified by temperature changes. So if the troposphere has your temperatures decreasing as you go up, then the stratosphere has to have your temperatures increasing. And that's because, once again, the ozone layer is in this layer and it absorbs those UV rays. If it gets warmer and increases in the stratosphere, when it turns into the mesosphere, that means the mesosphere has to be getting colder. So as you go up in the mesosphere, temperature decreases. And then as you go up into the thermosphere, that's your hottest layer, so the thermosphere is definitely going to show an increase in temperatures. So it does an opposite for each layer. Troposphere, decrease. Stratosphere, increase. Mesosphere, decrease. Thermosphere, increase. And that is it today for your tutorial. So make sure you guys study, make sure you've played the review game for your atmosphere quiz, and good luck on your atmosphere quiz.